having done it, having been through the Ironman. And I say Ironman, not marathon, because it's multiple marathons, right? Writing the book itself may be one marathon, but it's nothing compared to the publicity part. It's also maybe nothing compared to writing the book proposal, which is really, really hard. Writing the book itself was much easier. Once I had the book fully outlined and the table of contents in those first 2 chapters written, I wrote the next chapters in the same amount of time it took me to write the first 2. Welcome to the Sunlight Tax Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, design nerd, tax pro, author of Taxes for Humans, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative, wellness, or mission-driven entrepreneur who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, gorgeous. Happy summer. Oh, do you love summer as much as I do? I just love it, love it, love it. I hope you are enjoying the sun, the outdoors, play, maybe a different rhythm, wherever you are on this planet right now. Today, I want to switch gears a little bit and start a series about the business of writing a book. I know a lot of you out there have businesses. I mean, of course you do. That's why you listen to the Sunlight Tax Podcast. And if you've ever been curious what it's like to write a book, what it actually takes, what it does for your business, if it makes you any money, which is a good question, then I want to do a series for you this month to answer some of those questions. I also really want to hear from you. So if you have been book curious, send me your questions. I am happy to do some episodes that are just me answering listener questions. I am also bringing on a couple of really wonderful guests to bring a broader perspective about the book writing process. So coming up this month, I've got some really exciting guests. One is a book writing coach and an expert in nonfiction writing, which is a pretty different beast from fiction. And nonfiction is probably the most potentially beneficial to your business as a way to spread your big idea and bring light to the business that you're running and widen the audience. So that's a really practical, tactical one. And I'm actually doing a session with this book writing coach, Stacey Ennis, this Thursday. So they're for my Substack subscribers only. It's free, but you have to be a subscriber to my Substack, so you can do that. If you go to sunlighttax.substack.com, you can become a subscriber in 3 seconds by going to sunlighttax.substack.com. And if you're a subscriber, you will get the invitation to join Stacey and I for a fireside chat about the ROI of writing a book, specifically a nonfiction book. So this is not necessarily because you are a writer by training. You may be like me. You may be a tax professional / artist who does a lot of writing. Of course, you have to be a good writer to write a great book, but there's ways to get there. So this session is going to be really fun, really awesome. Stacey is so incredible. I am in her membership, which is called the Author's Influence Circle, where she shares really amazing insights into the publishing industry, the financial side of running a book, also like the marketing and the pre-work, and also just the actual writing process. So she's a real expert. She's written like 20 books herself, ghostwritten more. She's been a New York Times bestseller. So Stacey is really incredible, and I'm super honored that she is going to do a fireside chat with me live that you're welcome to join. So again, you just have to be a subscriber to my Taxes for Humans Substack in order to get the link to that, and I'm really excited to see you there. Later this month, I will also be interviewing fiction author Tessa Fontaine. She's written a memoir called The Electric Woman, as well as a novel called The Red Grove, which I read and loved. And she's working on her next novel right now. So I cannot wait to get that compare contrast between fiction and nonfiction and help all of you aspiring writers out there just figure out if this is a journey you want to take, what it takes, what some strategy around that is. And I'm just excited to share it with you. So today, I want to give you my first thoughts on writing a book, having done it, having been through the Ironman. Ironman, not marathon, because the marathon may be writing the book, but then you still have to do the marketing of the book, the book proposal, shopping the book proposal. Like there's many parts to writing a book. Writing the book itself is the maybe the easiest part. So that's a thing to know. All right, so my thoughts today on writing a book. First, I have a little bit of housekeeping for you, and then we're going to jump into my thoughts for you on the basics of writing a book, what to know about that process. So my housekeeping for you is I am doing a studio fundraiser this summer. If you don't know, I lost my studio completely in Hurricane Helene at the end of 2024. It flooded and destroyed all my work, all my paintings, my new sculptures, all my equipment, all my supplies, gone and totaled. And for semi-frustrating reasons, I do not qualify for the local recovery grant because my art did not actually make enough income. And yet I want to rebuild, trying to rebuild. I focus my energy on raising money for other people rather than myself when Hurricane Helene hit. And now I'm actually ready to rebuild because I have finished fundraising for others. I wrote a book. That was a lot going on. And so, it's been a minute, but most of the money has passed me by. So I am running a DIY recovery grant for myself. If you are interested, it's also doubling as a tax education campaign because I can't help being myself as I do this. I know the midterm elections are coming up, and there's a lot of talk about a wealth tax and a lot of impulse in that direction, which I think is a good impulse, but I think there's a good way and a bad way to do that stuff. So I have an FAQ about how taxes are currently working, how the wealthy really do avoid paying taxes, and how you and I can make a positive difference, what a good policy would look like, and what you can do. So sunlighttax.com/taxtherich is my FAQ page about how to tax the rich in a more fair and equitable way. But it's also a studio fundraiser for me. So I have been hand printing tote bags. And if you buy one tote bag, I will ship it to you and be very grateful. And the money 100% goes to help me rebuild. Or you can be a super supporter and get 5, and you can give tote bags to your friends. You can spread the word, and that is extra generous, extra wonderful. So you can do all of that at sunlighttax.com/taxtherich. And the new piece that you may have missed before, I was only selling Tax the Rich tote bags. I realize not everybody wants to carry a tote bag with that message on it. It might feel a little bit too tweaky for you, and that's fine. I also have tote bags that say human. I really love them. Those are actually the first totes that I printed. They're a little more artistic and they vary one to the next. So if you're interested in a human tote bag, those are also available at the same place, sunlighttax.com/taxtherich. All right. I'm so grateful to you for just helping spread the word about rebuilding my studio. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. And to those of you who have bought tote bags, who have spread the word, those super supporters among you, Kirthi, James, Tessa, I see you. I love you. I am so grateful to all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Let's talk about writing a book. So the first thing to understand when it comes to writing a book is that there's two different worlds, okay? Writing a fiction book versus writing a nonfiction book, there's a real division in the publishing industry, and they are treated differently. So first, just so you know the difference, in fiction, if you're writing a novel, you have to write the whole novel and then you shop it around. Okay, so you're taking a big risk, although you do get to take whatever time you want to make it great, right? So you have the ability to write and rewrite that book so it is perfect when you send it out. But you have to do the whole thing and then shop it around. Okay, so it's a huge investment of time upfront before you know if you'll even get anything, right? Get a publishing deal at all. Nonfiction is actually quite different. So for nonfiction, your first bit of energy is going to be spent on writing a book proposal. You write a book proposal and then you shop that around to publishers, and they decide if they want or don't want your proposal. And sometimes they might even request some changes to it. And you do submit 2 chapters and a table of contents for your book, but you don't actually have to write the whole book in advance. Okay. So the book proposal is constituted by basically it's 2 chapters of the book, a table of contents, and then a lot of information that is marketing related. If you cannot get yourself excited about doing the marketing part, I would ask you to maybe question writing a book at all, because marketing is such a huge part of having a successful book in the world that if you can't prove that you are up to the task, you're not going to get a book deal. Okay. I think a lot of people think if they make the thing, somehow magically it will get out into the world. And this goes for writing books. This goes for vibe coding new software apps. This goes for anything you do. If you don't then broadcast the message into the world, it will sit on your shelves and no one will ever know it exists. So this has been a really hard learning for me as an artist by training, who then started a business and was like, oh my God, 80% of my time is spent on messaging and marketing, only 20% in the making the work itself, the client fulfillment, right? Well, the same is true for writing. It may not be what you want to hear, but it's better to know it before you sink an enormous amount of time and energy and then realize that that's only 1/3 of the project. Okay. So yeah, the marketing stuff, it's a big deal. That book proposal is really difficult. It took me about 8 months to write a good book proposal. And that was on a pretty strict deadline, writing every single day. So I'm just going to tell you, that is no small feat. And then actually writing the book itself was much easier. Once I had the book fully outlined and the table of contents in those first 2 chapters written, I wrote the next chapters in the same amount of time it took me to write the first 2, right? So about 20 chapters in the same time it took me to write the first 2. I think that proves to you that the thinking work, the organizational work of that, structuring the book, I think that's the hard part. But, writers are different. That may be you and it may not. All right. So in nonfiction book writing, let me kind of lay out for you as I see it what the stages are. So first, you query agents, right? You get your book idea together. You may have a little bit written. You should definitely have a concept. You should have a rough outline. And you send what are called query letters to book agents, right? People who represent you and then can advocate for you and try and get you a book deal, basically shop your book proposal around to major publishers. I don't believe it's critical to have an agent, but I personally have an agent and I found it worth its weight in gold. Like absolutely, I could never have gotten the book deal I gotten without my agent. So getting an agent is a big deal and that's hard. Query letters, they take a long time. And of course, because the game is writing, the writing in the query letter better be great and it should show your voice, right? Step number 2, you write your book proposal. So the book proposal is, like I said, it's 2 chapters of your book. It's the table of contents, and then it's marketing material. So it tells you have to do kind of an analysis of books in the market. So what you're going to do is come up with a bunch of comparative titles, get stats about how those books have done, sort of prove that there is an audience for the book that you're writing. You also have to talk about you have to give a bio of yourself as an author. And the emphasis should really be all about how you have an audience and how you reach them, how engaged they are, what your channels are of communicating with them. If there is not an audience for your book, there is no book deal. So the audience part is really, really important. Now, a wonderful, amazing proposal that's hitting just at the right time can get a great book deal, even without you having a huge following as an author. But you definitely are going to need to know who you are targeting and have a way to be communicating with them. And the more people are engaged with your work, the bigger your audience and the more engaged, the better your chances. Next, you're going to take that book proposal and shop it around to publishers, right? Hopefully, if you have an agent at this point, that is work that your agent does, and they'll give you feedback. But this may be a long process. It can take more than a year. But shopping that book proposal around and then negotiating a book deal, that is the next step. Once you get your book deal, and congratulations, celebrate, then you have to write the book. So that's probably the part that's the clearest to anybody considering writing a book. That is the thing. That is the one thing everybody knows they need to do, right? It's the other 6 steps in this 7-step process that you probably feel a little more vague about. After you write the book, then comes the pre-launch marketing. I'm skipping over editing because I thought editing myself was kind of minor, although, it could be really quite a lot of work depending on who you are and what shape your book is in when you submit it. Pre-launch marketing is critically important. It's not just kind of important, it's super important. Your pre-launch sales are a big determiner, first of all, to the publisher of just how many books they're going to print, how much effort to put into you, maybe how much marketing dollars to allocate to you as an author versus their other authors, right? So you are proving yourself here with that pre-launch content and your pre-launch activity. You want to have a great pre-launch plan so that you sell as many books as you can before publishing day, because that is your best shot at making a bestseller list, at getting press. It's a really big deal. By the way, everyone listening who pre-ordered Taxes for Humans, my book, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you again. Now you know how important it was to me, and it really was. You made a big difference, so thank you. Okay, and then next there's launch publicity, right? There is a huge amount of marketing and publicity that goes into the launch of the book. You've got, your first window of, day, week, month is a really big deal, probably the biggest deal of all. But that first 4 months of book sales is probably the time that your publisher will pay the most attention to you and expect the most sales. And so you are going to be a busy, busy person during that time, and you want to have a great launch plan and publicity plan. And then last, and not to be forgotten to me, is the long tail, the business plan after the hype, that 4-month kind of hype period has died down. And it just gets to be like, okay, do you have steady book sales in the background? Do you have a channel set up to have ongoing, continuous book sales? Okay. So to me, those are the sort of stages of writing a nonfiction book and getting it out in the world. And, if you do it, it is what I consider to be an intellectual Ironman, right? And again, I say Ironman, not marathon, because it's multiple marathons, right? Writing the book itself may be one marathon, but it's nothing compared to the publicity part. It's also maybe nothing compared to writing the book proposal, which is really, really hard, but it forces you to do that brain work, that thinking work, that audience work that is so critical to having a successful book launch. So it's really important and good work that will be valuable for you. All right. Some observations along the way of my personal book journey. Your platform really matters. So when I say platform, that's kind of the industry word. But your platform is, your following, your audience, people who pay attention to what you say, right? Books are about spreading ideas, but so is, on a smaller scale, your newsletter list, your email, your Substack, your Instagram following, your LinkedIn maybe, whatever platform or platforms that you have and how big they are and how engaged they are. So it also matters, not just raw numbers. Like, a publisher does not really care how big your newsletter list, how many people are on your email list. What they care about is how often do you send a newsletter and what are your open rates? In other words, they're digging deeper into that statistic to look at your actual engagement. Do people even read your emails? How often? Like, to what degree, right? So that's a really important piece that a publisher is always going to be looking at. I don't want you to be too scared that you have to be Michelle Obama in order to get a book deal. I most certainly am not. But I think like having a strong engagement, I think that is where I was able to prove myself. Also, thank you. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you're a part of that. And I'm grateful to you. So it's part of why I wanted to turn around and kind of transparently share with you, because I know a lot of you might consider one day writing a book, even if that's several years down the pike. It's a many-year process, and, you might want to start percolating on it. I also want to share that your audience matters. What's your big idea and who is it for, right? I think you need to be crystal clear on who you are serving with this book, who the audience is, and why they want this book, what this book is solving for them, right? I think also this is a similar, if you're already running a business, if you are already self-employed and running a business, you already hopefully have done some work on who your client is and what problem you're solving for them. A book is really the same. It is a business proposition in that same way, in that you are serving someone. Who is it? Get into the details of their life. What are their demographics? What are their psychographics? What do they care about in this world? How do you connect with them? That is really important. If you don't know who your audience is, you don't have a book idea. I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but I cannot emphasize enough that how important it is to know who you are writing to. At the same time, the marketplace of books is something you'll have to do research on. Now, you're very unlikely to already know everything about that. I certainly had to look around a whole bunch and do the research, but it was kind of fun. Also, just it's a whole new world. Like, okay, who's writing on this topic? Who's writing for kind of independent-minded, creative people who are self-employed, right? Who is targeting that audience? What books have been written already in this area, right? What's my competition? How do I fit into that? What am I saying that no one else is saying, right? These are important questions to think about. Honestly, if you never write a book, thinking about this question for your business is helpful anyway. It's work we all could do, and we probably all could do better. Next, let's just touch on money. Now, I definitely would like to know from you. I'd love your feedback, like how much you want to know about the money side of writing a book. As you know, I love to talk about it, and I'm happy to. So send me your questions on Instagram at sunlighttax, or you can send them to me on Substack at sunlighttax.substack.com. Send me your questions about the money side, the ROI side of writing a book. I certainly think it's a good idea to walk into a book writing process with your eyes open about this. The money may not work at all the way you thought it did. I'm happy to demystify that, but I do want to kind of gauge what the interest is before I bleed my heart out onto the podcast with all my numbers, all right? So assure me that that's something you want before I go and comb through all my data. But again, I am happy to. I will tell you, there's a big difference between being a successful multiple book author, the money side of that, versus being a first-time author. Notoriously, the money on your first book is going to be not as good. And so a first-time book making money is pretty unlikely. Now, are there exceptions? Of course, but it's tough. It's tough out there. So my personal opinion here is you really need a plan, right? And you need to follow your plan. All right. So I think personally, the way that money does work, the way that the money side does work out, does pencil out for you when you are running a small business is, one, you need to have the capacity to take time away from your business. So consider the opportunity cost. How much time is it going to take you to write a book proposal, to shop it around, to write the book, to market the book? It's going to be tremendous, and it's probably going to be double the time you think it will be, right? And so how much money will you not be earning as you do those steps, right? That's a big deal. It's something to consider. Your book deal, your advance, is unlikely to be huge. Of course, people sell their stuff by saying, oh my gosh, I got a 6-figure deal. I will teach you how to get a 6-figure deal. Okay, fine. take the classes, study the things. That's all good. But your chances are very low of getting a 6-figure book deal, right? Unless you have a massive audience, right? And a huge publicity machine behind you. Just the chances of that are very small. So you're probably working with a smaller advance, possibly a very small advance. And so hopefully, you want to kind of budget your time and just be careful, be mindful that that isn't necessarily going to be enough money to support you, even through the full book writing process, let alone afterwards. Okay. The other thing is that book sales, I think some people think, probably especially because you see people out there promoting their book, you think, oh, they must be making money from the book. That's what's happening. That's actually usually not what's happening. An author is, especially a first-time author, is generally not making much money from actual book sales. What they're doing is growing their brand awareness, growing their platform, growing their audience, which then grows their business, right? So it's sort of like you want to already have a business that's functional, and then a book can help amplify that business, and the functional part hopefully becomes more so, right? You just get more people in the door. For a book sale itself, generally an author is making about $1 per book sold. So, you sell a book for $28, you get $1. Your costs of the publicity and the marketing are probably way over $1, so you may actually be losing money on your book sales. The other thing to understand is that advance that you get, so if the publisher gives you money, which in theory is meant to give you some time to actually set aside and write the book, that advance, you have to actually earn your advance through book sales before you start getting royalty checks for additional sales of books. Most authors never make that. They never actually, the average first-time author sells about 200 copies of their book. Let that sober you. Let that number sit with you for a minute, because you really want to be aiming higher, a lot higher than that if you can, because just one, I personally want to reach more than 200 people. I felt like publicity is important because this idea is important. I care about civics and democracy and people who run ethical businesses being able to run them with more strength and knowledge and actually get more money by not getting in tax trouble and by having smoother systems. This is the problem I wanted to solve in the world, and I don't just want to solve it for 200 people. I would prefer to solve it for 10,000, 100,000 people. I'm very much still trying to work up to those numbers. I'm not there, but you want to think about that is what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm happy to dig in a little more if you want onto the money side of this, but definitely send me your questions about finances of a book, especially if you have them, because I want to know if you want to know. So @SunlightTax on Instagram is a great way to just send me a DM. Let's talk about the publicity tour. I think one of the myths, one of the sort of old ideas of how a book tour works is that you go on a tour, a physical tour, and you go and do readings at bookstores. This may be part of your plan, part of your strategy. It's certainly a lovely thing to do. I have enjoyed going and doing bookstore events, but I will warn you that they are a tremendous amount of work. They are not as easy to get as you might think they are. You might think you can just be like, hey, I'm in the area, I'd like to do, a reading at your bookstore. And the bookstore might say, no, thanks. So it's more work than you think it is to do an event at a bookstore. You actually have to sell yourself a little bit to the bookstore, and you have to, try to get them sales. They have to do work in order to host an event for you. And they're a bookstore. It's a hard business. They're looking to make some money. So help bookstores make money is the answer. I found that the real modern day book tour is on podcasts. So really and truly, podcasts are not the only way, but certainly you've seen a lot of authors get their idea out in little bite-sized nuggets to hopefully entice you into reading their deeper work by going on other people's podcasts as a guest. I've had authors on my podcast who I want to talk about their big ideas. Professor Ray Madoff, who I had on last week to talk about taxing the wealthy. She's incredible, and I brought her on because I read her book and thought it was dynamite. And I'm really excited for you to go read her book because I think it's amazing. If you want to know how the wealthy avoid taxes and how we could tax people more fairly, Professor Madoff's book is the bomb. Highly recommend. The Second Estate, How the U.S. Tax Code Built an American Aristocracy. That is the name of her book. And yeah, get it. Get it, not because I'm getting any kind of kickback from that. Get it because I think that book is amazing. That's why I like to have people on. And I think that kind of comes to my last point, which is do it because you want to do it. Do it because you really have an idea that you need to get out in the world. Don't do it to try to make money. Like, let me put some more nuance on that. By all means, make money. I want you to prosper. I want you to grow your wealth. These are good things. But if you want to write a book to just maximize dollars, there's other ways that are faster and easier to do that. A book is not easy at all. Books are about spreading ideas and reaching people and really touching people on a deep level because it's an intimate one-on-one experience to read a book, to read, you're literally reading the thoughts of another human being. And I think that's kind of incredible. So my strategy personally for writing a book was really not to just sell my stuff at Sunlight Tax. Like, I feel frustrated as a reader when I read a book that I feel is basically just a little bit better than a marketing push for somebody's business that's kind of pointing me to a bunch of their paid products and only giving me a taste to get me interested. I get really frustrated when I read a book like that. I don't like that experience as a reader. And for me, I really wanted my book to be incredible. I had a problem I wanted to solve because I have been the person who has needed this book. I wrote the book that is, the tax guide that a freelancer needs to not get into tax trouble, to know what's coming, to build some retirement accounts and set up some wealth building, and to just be able to do your taxes, right? This is not easy information to get, and it frustrated me how hard it was to get. So that's why I wrote my book. And I really, really wanted to write it for the person like me who doesn't always feel seen, right? Someone who is femme, queer, really, really driven by their ethics in the world and not just dollars, and therefore doesn't always feel seen by like the accounting space where it seems to, I think people in accounting tend to think that everything comes down to dollars and cents. And if you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you are a podcast producer, these things may not be true. You may be so driven by the idea and the quality of your work that really is primary to you and the dollars come second. That's who I wanted to speak to and help with their money, right? And to me, my very best marketing plan was just writing the best book that could possibly exist in this space. A book where when you read it, you're like, oh my God, she made a lot of mistakes. She's a real human. Like, she's not judging me. She's telling me what a fuck up she's been. And that she actually became very good at this after being very bad at this. And like, if she can do that, I can probably do that too. And this book is going to be a bit of a shortcut. So I don't have to do all those horrible things that she had to do, right? That is the book I wanted to be out in the world. I wanted people to feel so seen by it that they would love it and share it with their friends. Right? I didn't want a book that the only way I could make sales was to just pour money into a PR firm, right? So it's my hope that Taxes for Humans is that amazing, amazing book. By the way, nothing makes me happier than getting notes in my inbox or in my DMs and Instagram saying that somebody is reading my book and feeling that, like, feeling seen, feeling connected, feeling like, oh my God, I didn't know it could be easy like this. That lights me up. I think that honestly is half of the payment for my book. And I get it every day, and it just makes me so happy. And by the way, if you have read my book, please send me a note. Nothing makes me happier than getting those notes from you. So I hope that has been kind of an interesting little behind the scenes journey about my own book process and just breaking down the steps of writing a nonfiction book, the difference between a nonfiction and a fiction journey. I'm really excited this month to bring you more episodes about the book writing process, the ROI, the return on investment of writing a book. And we're also going to speak to a fiction author, Tessa Fontaine, so that if you have a novel in you, that we can explore that topic as well. So please, please, please send me your questions about fiction, nonfiction, money. What are the questions that you have about writing a book? What have you always wondered? This is what I want to talk about in the next month. So bring me the questions at Sunlight Tax on Instagram, or you can ask me a question through Substack. And last thing before we go, on Substack this week for my Substack subscribers, it's free. I'm offering a fireside chat with book coach Stacey Ennis. Multiple authors. She's written over 20 books. She's a New York Times bestseller. She's an incredibly insightful, thoughtful writer who has really coached a lot of writers to make their best work. So she is amazing, and I cannot wait for you to hear her wisdom and bring your questions to that session. It's an hour long. It's at noon this Thursday, July 9th, and I cannot wait to see you there. You can get an invitation just by joining my Substack, sunlighttax.substack.com, and I'll see you at the fireside chat with Stacey on Thursday. All right. Great to talk to you today. Go out and spread your big idea and share this with your friend who's thinking of writing a book. Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. It really helps. I'm so grateful. My tax guide, Taxes for Humans, is available wherever you buy books and at sunlighttax.com/book. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.